I believe what Donald Trump says is accurate. I believe that we're about to experience 4 golden age years of America. I believe that he is going to win with the House and the Senate, which is what he needed to truly enforce his MAGA Agenda 47. Another part of the silver lining is now he knows who he can trust, because there's a whole lot of Republicans that turned on him over these last 4 years.
Sure.
He called out Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley because they both turned on him. Like, he was a part of his administration. He was a pivotal part. All intents and purposes, I believed that what he was doing was right. Again, it's like I thought Pence was a good guy too. So when it comes back to what are the Democrats going to do, I don't know, but I think they're going to have a very hard time with Trump winning. He knows who he can trust. He knows who he can't trust. Anybody in the last 4 years, like a Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo, anybody that shared the talking line of the Democrat Party, the mainstream media, against Trump in any of those lawfare cases can't be trusted.
How are you doing?
I am amazing. Are you kidding me? We won.
I know. Your shirt is priceless.
We won.
Literally,
yeah, exactly. We won.
Oh my God. Where were you? Were you in Florida on November 6th that would have ended up being?
No, I wasn't. I was invited to the convention center, but my Newsmax show is Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern here from my home studio. And so it was either fly out there for that one event or just watch it online and then do my show the next night. So we just chose to stay in.
Yeah, well, it was it was a late night, but like, how glad are we though that it was just one night?
Oh, I know. That's the miracle. I mean, I think we were all anticipating, even President Trump had said, it could take, a week, 10 days, 12 days in some states, but we made it too big to rig. There was no way they couldn't call it. So,
I was fortunate enough to fly in Trump Force One a couple times.
I know, I'm jealous.
Right at the end, it was basically the last night. Flew from his second to last rally in Pennsylvania to Grand Rapids, and then from Grand Rapids back to West Palm. And on the first flight, I sat next to Laura for most of it, and just hearing from Laura Trump and how much the RNC did to make sure that there was voter integrity was really crazy. Just how long they've had people on location, how long they've been working on it, 1,000 people in every swing state, and then like 500 lawyers ready to go in every swing state. Like, they were ready. They were really ready. Is there anything else that you saw that helped with being able to get this thing done in a night?
Well, I think that everything that the RNC did, which again, that's huge in and of itself. The RNC back in 2016 didn't lift a finger to help President Donald Trump, and they were still very compromised in 2020. So they didn't do a lot. They left a lot up for grabs, I believe. And I think because of the uniparty, the swamp, the rhinos, those that say they're Republicans, but really are a part of the establishment that don't want change, that like the power the way they have it, they left things kind of unchecked on purpose, I think. So the fact that Laura came in and the new heads of the RNC came in and then brought in Scott Pressler to do all their ground game work, I think all of that together was monumental. I mean, there were so many different factors that played into it. That was hugely important. The fact that President Trump did so many podcasts with huge podcasters from Joe Rogan to Theo Vaughn to the Nelk Boys. He just wasn't shy to the streamers. He wasn't shy about inviting these people in and giving them a firsthand glimpse of who he is. Let them meet him and get to know him. And Kamala and the team, they couldn't hold a candle to that. There's no way she could hold. She barely held a 15-minute press conference, 23-minute I think it was NBC coverage, and that was edited and scripted. So there's no way that she could do that. So I think on that side of it, especially as how many men showed up for President Trump. I think it was like 49% of men average across showed up for President Trump in the certain demographic, black demographic. It was like 25 to 30%, which is historic for the black community, because the black community has had this, this unrelenting just favoritism towards the Democrat Party based on a lie that goes back 60 years. But they've had this blind allegiance to the Democrat Party to where 90 to 95%, especially men, 95% of the black community have voted for whatever Democrats in office, blue no matter who. And so to see in Atlanta, Georgia, 25%, and some of the other deep blue, historically blue states and heavily minority states, 25 to 30, even 35% of the black vote is historic. And that's like, that made me tear up, because as somebody that's been championing President Trump since 2016, trying to wake people up, and called every name in the book, especially from my own family. I mean, I was written off by my own family.
Was there a moment that you came out with your support for Trump back in 2016 where everything sort of shifted for you? I feel like with a lot of people there are, just because he's such a divisive character.
Yeah, when I first saw him come down the escalator and announce his bid for president, I started asking people that I knew, and I've been a business guy since I was 20 years old. I started my first company when I was 20. We were doing 2 million a year in sales by the time I was 22. Young guy, 150 to $200,000 a month going through your account. But business has been my forte. It's been, I've been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, since I was 20 years old. And so I began to ask some of the business people that I knew what they thought of President Trump.
Yeah.
And they said, that's exactly what we need in the White House. We need somebody that understands that this country is a business, and we need somebody that understands business to treat it like that so we stop getting ripped off. So I heard that from so many individuals that I look up to and look towards as mentors in the business realm. And then when I saw how he would talk about the top issue for me, Danica, the top issue has always been life. It's like when somebody's willing to murder a baby, an innocent baby, our most innocent and cherished gifts from God, when they're willing to bring harm or murder to a baby, especially up to the 9th month, partial birth abortion is so barbaric. It is purely evil. And so in my book, that goes back to Barack Obama. When I first heard Barack Obama was running for president, I was actually instantly, I was surprised and then, excited that we could have the opportunity to vote for a black man as president.
Of course.
And God bless my mom. I started to say my mom always said I have the best of both worlds because she's white of Irish descent. My dad is black. So I'm in the middle. So my mom always said I got the best of both worlds, which I believe I do. But my mom said to me, she said, David, pay attention to how Barack has voted on the issues that matter to you. And so when I looked at his policies on abortion and saw that he was in favor of partial birth abortion, late-term abortion, and that he had voted against a bill that would provide medical treatment to babies that survived abortions, I said, I don't care what color this guy is. He's not getting my vote. And then I began to champion life and try to get people to wake up to who Barack was back in 2008. And then in 12, he got elected again. So when 2016 rolled around and I heard President Trump unequivocally say, you know what? If a woman decides to kill her baby and it's close to the 9th month that she's pregnant, she should potentially be charged with a homicide. I was like, whoa, I hadn't heard that come out of any potential president's mouth before. And he was unashamed to say it. So that's what really made it all click for me. And then 2016, after the second or third debate, I think it was the third debate between Trump and Hillary, where he just blasted her. There were so many of those great one-liners, you know.
The you'd be in jail line.
Exactly. Yeah, that one. So many of those one-liners. But he was very much pro-life.
Yeah.
And I shared a video. As soon as the debate was over, I went live on Facebook. I had maybe 1,500 friends. I didn't have any social media platform. And I just went live and I just poured my heart out for like 14 minutes. And I said, as a Christian, as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, and as a member of the Black community. And it's in that order for me. My identity is not in my skin color. I'm a Christian first. I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for God's grace and his mercy. But I just poured my heart out as to what I felt was at stake between who was going to take the Oval Office. And that video went crazy viral. It hit 50,000 views that night, 100,000 the next morning, 200, 300, 400,000 views. And my inbox was flooded from messages from men, women, all colors of the spectrum. And the theme was a central theme besides the hate, because I got plenty of that.
Sure.
But a central theme was, I'm a Democrat. My whole family are Democrats. And I was going to vote for Hillary until I watched your video. And that's what I said. I said, wow.
It takes a lot to change someone. Yes.
So I felt the hand of God on that. I felt like God said, hey, if you can wake up one person, especially on the issue of abortion, because it was a very pro-life message, I felt like God said, will it be worth it to deal with whatever comes? And I said, yes. So I've been championing him very strong from that day.
Well, thank you. And I agree. What I thought was so crazy about the fact that there was so much push from Kamala's side about women's rights, and then them being able to choose my body, my choice kind of stuff, which is ironic because the vaccine and all that stuff was, not being made a choice.
Right.
But that women weren't going to necessarily get any more from her. The abortion was left up to the states after Roe
Yeah.
versus Wade was overturned. And it was now up to the states. The Supreme Court was not going to go in favor of a change because 3 people were appointed under Trump. So that's probably going to be difficult. She was also in office for almost 4 years already now. And so I found it just really ironic that everyone thought that they were going to get something from her, get more rights. And nothing was going, there's nothing that was ever really going to be able to change. It was all left up to the states. And, you could go vote for whichever presidential candidate you wanted, and then you could still choose differently on abortion rights for your state.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. And it really is par for the course for what I believe is just the Democrat Party, their platform and their optics. It's all about optics. It's all about messaging. And, I actually heard a pastor say this a long, long time ago, a couple decades ago. He said, for those that know the truth, are you a believer
In
Jesus?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. I thought so. I was just making sure. If not, we're going to have a talk. But I could tell you love Jesus. I see that all over you. But I heard a pastor say, he said, for a long, long time, the world has told lies really, really well. And the church has told the truth really, really poorly. And it was like, wow, it's messaging, right? Like Jesus was a master storyteller. He told, so they asked him a question, he'd give him a parable. He'd tell them a story that would try to help reinforce the messaging behind it. And unfortunately, I think for the Republican Party, especially, their messaging has been horrible until President Trump came along. And for the Democrats, they don't care if it's true or not. They just want a message that tugs on the heartstrings of whoever it can, with messages like women's rights.
Oh, sure.
Well,
I mean, the debate that they had was a perfect example of just lie.
Yeah. Lie after lie after lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what they've become. And I think that this now, with the overwhelming majority vote, the popular vote that President Trump won by over 7 million.
Yeah. What is it up to now?
It's over 7 million right now, last I heard, which was yesterday.
Wow.
7 million in his favor. And then the Electoral College vote of 312, that's a sweeping, resounding message from the American people as to what they're rejecting and what they want. And so that's where, I don't know if you saw that CNN is making massive layoffs and cuts. And it looks like Anderson Cooper and some of the biggest names over there are gone.
I even thought in the last sort of month, you saw them telling the story not in a Democratic favor. I thought even in the last month, I almost thought they looked like they were changing their tune, as if they were trying to like plug the hole on the sinking ship right before it was over. I don't know if you noticed that, but I kept seeing stories and I'm like, CNN?
I did. It did seem like they were trying to save face. It seems like their owner, his name is spacing me right now, but he runs a business, and at a certain point, people that run a business have to understand that their business is only going to be successful if they're actually appealing to the audience. And when you're in the business of reporting news, and there's a sweeping majority, which the election proved that. But prior to, as you were saying, I did see that where a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks prior, it seemed like they were having people on that they were allowing to say what the majority of Americans felt.
Oh, yeah.
And not cutting it out or editing it.
I thought that was refreshing. Well, we need someone to come in and buy it, don't we? Isn't that? I thought I saw a rumor that Elon was thinking about buying CNN. I mean, that's probably just a rumor to try and get that thing to start fire. But I mean, I was listening to PBD earlier today, and this sort of topic came up about Chris Cuomo on and Charlie Kirk, and the topic of what do you think were the biggest needle movers in everything, and one of the really big ones that came up was the fact that Elon bought Twitter. Just speak to your experience with censorship and what you've gone through.
I really started getting hit with the brunt of it back in 2019. It seemed like they either left me alone or they didn't have the mechanisms in place. I don't know what point the whole fact checkers came into play, if it was 18, 19, somewhere in there, 2018, 19.
Which platforms are you referring to then?
Well, it started with Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram. But then once the fact checkers existed, they were on all platforms. So Twitter, YouTube kind of has their own rules. I've actually been banned on YouTube. I was banned in 2020.
I feel super shadow banned these days. And we were just having a call, me and my team, and I had mentioned that I was like, I feel like YouTube's been really shadow banned in the last like 2 months, and my team was like, yeah, we see that too.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, that's an offset of Google, which Google is all about, trying to manipulate the algorithms to make people see what they want people to see. I mean, it is election interference. When it comes to social media, my Facebook is where I started growing first. I've got 2.2 million followers over there, but I don't have near the reach that I used to. I was reaching 150 million people a month on average when my page was really hopping. And I had a show that would go on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and I'd have 20 to 30,000 people watching me for 30 to 45 minutes every night. And it was just a self-produced. I didn't have anybody helping me. It was just me. And then going into the 2020 election, I think it was like November, they just turned off my reach, like overnight. And then there's a post in the back of there's a message in the back of my Facebook that says your feed has been downgraded, and fewer people will see your page and your posts. And so it went from 150 million people down to like less than 5 million people a month are seeing my stuff, which
so infuriating.
Oh yeah, it deflates you. And they took off all the monetization because I had videos monetized. I had my own website that I provided news from, so I could give people an alternative to news. And I had 2 news sites at one point, and between both of them, they were getting about 150,000 hits a month between both of them, which was pretty massive. It was, sorry, it was about 15 million hits a month. Sorry, between both of them. One of my news sites was beating Dan Bongino, and the other one was right underneath Dan Bongino's news website. So I knew I was doing pretty good if I was keeping up with Bongino. But that was all based on people being able to see my page on Facebook, and then they'd see the article, and then they click the article, and they go to my website. And so all of that just shut off in November of 2020. So I've dealt with plenty of it. When the pandemic came out, I don't know if we can say that. Is this going on YouTube?
Yeah, well, we can bleep out whatever we need to and turn it into a flower or something.
Because I know that word, right? They hated that video, that movie, right? That documentary that dove deep onto the whole pandemic issue. That word's okay, but they didn't like anything that had to do with anything else.
Well, it's only all proved to be true now.
Exactly. So I got hit with a literal fact check, community strike on Facebook and Instagram for posting a box of the ear loop masks, just the very basic ear loop masks. On the side of the box, the side of the actual box itself, it says, this mask is not intended to prevent the transmission of any virus.
Oh, geez.
I posted a picture of that, and they said this could be misinterpreted. It's a community strike, a fact check. If you get too many fact checks, they take your page.
Fantastic.
So they were threatening to take my page for like 3 years. I'd log into the back office of my Facebook, and it would say your page is at risk of being unpublished.
Oh my God.
So I've dealt with my share of it.
Yeah. Still what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite platform now?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I love X. I love X because, it seems like you get breaking news there first.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. And since Elon unbridled it, you're not only seeing what they want you to see.
Right.
I love X as well because of the messaging behind Elon, richest guy in the world, willing to put his livelihood, life on the line to buy something to save free speech. It's like that is powerful in and of itself. That's historic. I think that'll be in the history books as far as people looking back at this era in time and saying what helped cause the shift that saved America. And I truly believe it was Elon buying Twitter, turning it into X, because what that also did, it also lowered the ability of the other fact checkers to just operate, at will on the other platforms. Because it's like, well, if it's not getting fact checked on X, why are you fact checking it over here?
Right,
you
right.
do
It was
you do
starting to
these
expose, like you were starting to see the delta.
exactly?
Hmm.
Yeah. So it lowered it. It didn't eliminate it, but it lowered it. So I love X, and then Instagram. I actually just hit 2 million followers on Instagram, so
Yeah,
that's always
congrats.
fun. And that seems to be where I have the most traction right now. Facebook still has me pretty throttled, but so I love Instagram. I utilize Facebook. I started TikTok, and it seems like every third video I post, they flag it. So I was very very reluctant to start TikTok years ago because of that. It was right in the middle of all the censorship crap, and I said, well, they're not going to let me grow. So I did start it anyway, just to have a presence over there. And then I restarted it. I restarted YouTube. Now that I have a show on Newsmax, I'm just kind of posting my clips from my show on there. Yeah, that's what I would say. What are your favorites?
Well, I loved Instagram, but something's happened in the last year or so where it just doesn't grow, it doesn't move. My followers stay the same. The views and likes are different. I get shadow banned all the time. It'll go from a certain amount of views to, a quarter. And it's so anyway, I started using X just like probably 2 months ago, really. And it's crazy how many more views and likes and everything that I get. It's like I mean, even the one that popped the biggest was when I posted that I voted for the first time, and that one had 36 million views. Like,
Wow.
none of that happens on Instagram. None of that. I
No.
mean, if I have anything big on Instagram, maybe 50,000 likes on something, then I
Yeah.
go on X and I have, 36 million was obviously a little high, but my picture with Trump on the plane was like seven or so over 7 million.
Oh yeah.
So, a million or two has happened, quite a few times, but it's no problem, no big deal for things to be at 200, 250, or even just 100, which is still way better than what's happening over on Instagram. So it's very frustrating, all of that. I think that's definitely been one of the things that has made this election something different. What are
Hmm.
the other things that you think have made the biggest difference? And we're talking about people endorsing, going from being Democrats to independents or even Republicans. The attempted assassination. What do you think are some of the biggest things that really shifted this election and had the outcome that we did?
So yeah, I think the at the end of my show, again, which is 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday, via the Newsmax app. It's live on Newsmax. N2 is their streaming platform. At the end of every single show, I have a segment called the Silver Lining, and I actually have that segment and that phrase because in 2020 when it was announced that Joe Biden was going to take the Oval Office, I was really pretty distraught. I mean, I was a part of the Black Voices for Trump campaign. So we had traveled and toured, and I was still doing the stuff I was doing before to support President Trump. But I just really, really was concerned about 4 years under Joe Biden and what I thought he could do and would do, and from the economy to the border to all of it. So when it was announced that Joe Biden was going to take the Oval Office, I was pretty distraught, and I remember praying, and I just said, Lord, I said, what is happening? Why would you allow this to happen? Like, I don't understand. And I really felt like I heard him say, "There's a silver lining." That was all I heard, and I was like,
Mm.
well, if you're
Mhm.
saying there's a silver lining, then I know I'm missing something, but I'm going to hang on to that. And I began to pray into it more, and the more I'd pray into it, I said, you know what? If all these things that I fear and that actually did happen, the opening of the border, the economy totally tanking, so many people out of work, and then add to it the pandemic, and that didn't make it any better. It was just kind of the triple ripple effect of that didn't help. But as I prayed about it and thought about it, I said, you know what? Maybe that's what it's going to take to wake people up. Maybe they
Mm.
need to see what Joe Biden and this Democrat administration are going to do
Yeah.
in order to wake up, because America was still very, very divided in 2020.
Yeah.
The media was all out assault against Trump, and it
Mhm.
was Joe Biden is is going to be the saving grace to our country, and then the fact that he ran a campaign from the basement and won. I personally don't believe that the outcome was accurate, but I believe everything happens the way they're supposed to.
You don't believe all those votes came in?
Yeah, all the votes that didn't come in just now for Kamala, no, I don't think that
Yeah.
that's I think that's still
One doesn't
there's
look
still
like
some
the other, unfortunately.
exactly. One doesn't look like any of the other. The
Any of
last
the others
two
ever in
elections
history.
of Obama, and then about 65 million Democrat votes, and then with Kamala about 65 million. But Joe's got 81 million
81.
somehow. Yeah, it's a miracle. So, but
Oh,
I do believe all things work together for good,
yeah.
as the Bible says. And so, as I prayed into the silver lining, I was like, well, maybe that's what it's going to take. It's going to take things getting worse in order for people to wake up, especially Christians, because I believe in 2020, the number was about 40 million believing Christians, people of
Hmm.
faith, didn't vote
Hmm.
because they either felt like, how could they vote for Trump, or just not voting was, a better option. And when Trump has stood for religious liberties and stood for pro-life issues and causes, and appointed the three Supreme Court justices that wound up being the deciding factor to overturn Roe v. Wade and stop murdering babies, at least at the federal level, it's like that should be enough for any person of faith to say, okay, he's got my vote, right?
Right.
Stop murdering babies. He's got my vote.
Right.
Um, so I believe there was going to be a silver lining. What I did not have any clue was going to take place, to go back to your question, was all of the individuals that came out of the woodwork or came out from their comfortable position, like RFK Jr.,
Yeah.
for Bobby Kennedy, for a Kennedy to come out and say, I am leaving the Democrat Party. Are you kidding me?
I mean, a couple of girlfriends and I went to Tucker's last show in Phoenix. That's where I live, for his tour. And one of them has family and that don't agree on the same candidate. And she was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm worried about what my family is going to think about me being here. And Bobby is up there on stage saying that he prayed for the 30 minutes for the last 19 years for an opportunity to make a difference. And God sent him Donald Trump.
Woo!
He's like, how can I feel bad when he is a cradle Democrat
Yeah.
forever? And,
Yep.
to make that kind of transition and change was truly remarkable.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was a historic moment.
Mhm.
Tulsi Gabbard, right?
Yeah.
She was Democrat and then independent, and came out and was like, I'm supporting President Trump, right? I'm a Republican, because they stand for the people. Elon Musk, that wouldn't have happened for him to
Yeah.
come out and not
Yeah.
only champion, but then campaign for him. He spent two
Oh my God.
weeks in Pennsylvania with his own money, on his
And
own
was the
dime, and then
biggest
gave
donor.
millions.
And was the biggest donor to the campaign, or at least one of the biggest donors to the
Yes.
campaign, and topped it off with a cherry on top, giving for the last 2 weeks, giving someone $1 million every single day, which was just fantastic to sign that petition. But I actually thought that one of the moments that shifted, at least like the status quo or acceptance for embracing Trump, was when Vivek pulled out after Iowa. And he just quickly jumped on the Trump train and said, "I'm supporting him." And I met him a couple weeks ago, and so I messaged him after, and I was like, I think that was a big moment because it really set the standard that it was okay to just go, we're doing this for the whole country. I know I can't
Yes.
win on my own. I'm going to stop fighting this battle with my ego, and I'm going to pull the ripcord, and I'm going to go all in on Trump because that's how we're going to win. I actually
Yep.
thought that was a smaller moment, but a really important one to sort of set the standard that it was okay to just jump on board.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what Vivek did there, and he's very articulate. He knows his stuff. He's brilliant, and to have him supporting President Trump,
Yeah.
and being willing to back off and show his support for Trump, it brought more, I think, clarity to people that were thinking, it gave the base at least an opportunity to say, well, you might like Vivek or you might like Trump. I don't even remember who else was even running at that point, but then to see them pull back and say, okay, no, Trump is our guy, to bring that unity, which is the opposite of what the Democrats had.
Yeah.
I still, you know what, Danica, it's so hard for me to believe that the Democrats actually pulled off what they did pull off and almost pulled off what they were trying to.
I am flabbergasted, to be honest, how many votes still came in. I really am. But the one weird thing about it, though, is that I think to myself about my echo chamber that I live in to some degree seems like, and the momentum of things seem one way, but I still knew a lot of people that were going to vote for Kamala. I still did. That was the only thing that made me say, okay, but I still can't believe that many people still thought that was the best way, especially as the campaign continued to unravel and they just kind of became the party of hypocrisy. But to be honest, for me, it started as soon as she was the one that was in position to run for president for the Democratic Party, when all they did was talk about upholding democracy, and that was the least democratic thing of all.
Yeah.
If the people vote for things, and that sort of is part of the critical part of a democracy, is that the people are voting. They didn't.
No, the elites appointed her. Screw what you feel and want, American Democrats. We're not going to give you an opportunity to vote. We're not going to give you an opportunity to select out of, these choices and options who you want to represent you for president. We're just going to appoint this woman and then demand that you support her. Completely anti-democratic, completely anti everything that has to do with nominations, the presidential process, America, and yet people still voted for her.
Yet they called Trump fascist.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think that, because obviously, Donald J. Trump did win. What do you think it says about, in the end, the people that didn't come to her rescue and didn't end up, there wasn't enough people that did. What do you think that it says about the campaign and about the American people and what they really want?
Well, I think Van Jones kind of summed it up. He actually was on CNN a couple nights ago, and he said, somebody asked him that pretty much that question, like, what do you do? Where's everybody at that supported Kamala? And he said, we're all in therapy. He's like, we're all in therapy. We don't know what to do. He's like, we have no idea what to do. He said, obviously, we were all wrong. He said, obviously, this is Van Jones. He's on CNN saying we were obviously all very wrong. We all got it wrong. We all obviously don't have the pulse of the American people and what the majority of the American people want. And we have to figure out why and how that happened, which to me is still completely a complete hypocrisy, because he knows. Van is smart. Most of the individuals on TV, on MSNBC, CBS, ABC, CNN especially, most of them, they know exactly what the truth is, but they're paid opposition. They don't care. They get paid to share a story and spit a narrative and try to get as many people to believe their narrative as possible as the political arm, media arm of the Democrat Party. That's what they do.
They paid a lot of people.
She paid a lot of people and still spent $1 billion and still wound up $20 million in debt.
$1 billion was raised, 1.37 billion was spent, 582 million on staff, while Trump raised 381 million, spent 345, and spent 10.4 million on staff. And I giggle, look, they did a good job, but they could have maybe used a couple extra people for the surrogates and everything, because I did a lot of events for them. But I'm that doesn't shock me. I mean, it doesn't shock me from the Trump side, but it is so shocking to spend that kind of money in 100-ish days. That is absolutely wild. And of course, as we were just saying, she was appointed. She didn't raise $1 billion. It was waiting for whoever was there. There's no way that all of a sudden on day one, she has all of this campaign money that was sitting there for anyone to plug and play into that position. So,
well, that's why I think that's the other reason why they actually picked Kamala, is because it was a part of the Joe Biden-Harris war chest. So we can pull Joe out, but if we're going to keep this money in place 100 days out from the election, we need Kamala to stay there because it can stay with her, and then we can raise more. So that's their whole that's the whole sneaky behind the scenes BS that Americans are tired of, and hopefully they're seeing it. That's why hopefully your podcast continues to just go viral and do great, because people need to see what you have to say. They need to see what your guests have to say, and hopefully some people are watching that maybe are used to watching MSNBC or CNN or ABC or NBC. Hopefully they are.
Yeah.
And I
watch CNN. I still watch that's the thing, watching it all.
Exactly. Watch it all. Right. That's unfortunately what a lot of people refuse to do, because and I think it's because a lot of people, most people don't like to be wrong. Yeah. Who likes to be wrong?
It's not comfortable.
Nobody likes to be wrong. It's not comfortable. Then that means you have to eat crow, and you have to be humble, and you have to admit, hey, I was wrong. And people are stubborn, right? People like to be comfortable in what they think they know. And when they're faced with an alternate reality that actually could be superior to what they believe, or understand that what they've been believing and cherishing and holding on to could actually be a lie. It's even more distressful to actually think about, but it's necessary, right? Who wants to build anything based on lies or half truths or anything else? What good relationship can you have, I have, any of us have with anybody, family, friends, or anything, if it's built on lies or half truths?
The
And yet
truth.
people have that relationship with the media
Mhm.
and then try to ignore it.
The truth always comes out in the end, and the longer you wait, the worse it usually feels. I sort of attribute the cognitive dissonance around things like religion, politics, the big fundamental foundational sort of belief systems, in a way that when you change, it's like I'd look at it like a house or a pyramid. You know, when you pull out one of those bottom layers, it's a major shift for everything. And so when you take out something so foundational like that, I think that there's an implied feeling that everything in life could change. And that change is very hard for people and very scary for people. Bridging back to what had happened this year, just look at how many people did exactly that had so much to lose, and so many people to be angry at them, like Tulsi Gabbard, like Bobby Kennedy. I mean, these people that, and there are more that sort of shifted their belief system, and they did it publicly. So I think that should be a testament to just being a good example of being able to change your mind. I think, there are great people like Jordan Peterson and people like that talk about how important it is to be able to have the discussion. I mean, some of the most popular shows in history and sports and politics and things like that end up being with two people that don't agree, because that makes for a very interesting debate.
Yes.
And if we could all just get more open-minded to realize that if I love when I have changed my mind on something, because it means I've learned something.
Yeah. Yeah. You learned, and then you have to grow, right? Because now you have to adapt to that new information. And the new information is going to cause you to react differently and think differently about other aspects of life. So that's what we need a lot more of. We need a lot more dialogue. We need a lot more, again, I always just say, do your own research. It's like you hear something, go look at the data, go look at 2 or 3 different websites and see what they say, and look at opposing websites. You're going to see something different on the New York Times than you do on Breitbart, but go read them both, and then see what else you can dig up and find to validate what is actually true. There's so much opinion media out there where they're either leaving out truths in order to sway your opinion on an issue, which you leave out. It's like any court case is always based on the facts. You leave out one detail, and it can sway an entire decision for a whole jury based on one minor detail that was left out. And yet it seems like most of the legacy media has made they've perfected the art of leaving out little bits, like the very, very famous, there's very fine people on both sides, right? Trump saying there's very fine people on both sides, and the media took that and ran with it as he's talking about the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists, when literally in the few seconds before he said there's very fine people, afterwards he said there's very fine people on both sides, and then he said, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis or the white supremacists. Those people should be condemned entirely. But they cut that part out. And then they just air, there's very fine people on both sides. All the media, legacy media, run with President Trump, very fine people on both sides talking about neo-Nazis. And that's what they use to baselessly call him a racist. And if people don't do their own research to find out what the truth is, why should they believe anything different?
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, I think the house of cards really started falling when he called out fake news so many 8 years ago or whatever it was. I mean, that was really the moment that we all went, "Oh, what?
Yep.
You mean that's not the truth?" I mean, I thought that was actually, I think that's been one of the most important pieces that's sort of put us where we are now.
Yeah, I agree. That and the attempted assassination.
Yeah, speak to that. I mean, that was I was in Europe when it happened, and I woke up like it was time difference, and I was like, oh my God, the president. And then I was thinking to myself, like, I was like, almost made a joke, like maybe I don't go home, but I'm like, no, go home. Like this is this is where you stand up for what's right. And I still think that needs to be extremely careful. And from what I understand now, as president-elect, he'll have a far upgraded security detail, Secret
Yes.
Service. So that's a really, really good thing. But where were you, and what did you think when that happened? Obviously, there are many that have felt, including him, that the hand of God was on him, and that this is a very spiritual moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember I was in my car when somebody texted me. They just shot President Trump, attempted assassination. And I think that, I forget if they said he's okay or we're waiting or whatever. And I pulled over. I had to just pull over immediately and started praying, and went to I think Instagram to just pull up what people were saying and showing, and then sit there and watched it. They're playing clips of it, and just very, very, very eye opening, very shocking, very somber, and just that we were at a point in our country, and we've heard people say that they're going to try to take him out and things, but it's a completely different feeling and scenario when it actually happens.
Of course.
That the shot was taken. And I remember just pulling over, and I actually called a friend of mine that's kind of a spiritual mentor to me. He's very prophetic. Like when I first met him, his name's Rex Crane. When I first met him, I met him in passing at an event. I was actually speaking at a men's conference in Southern California. There was about 3,000+ men, all men there. And I was there to speak. And I kind of met him, and he was there to speak. But he didn't really know me from Adam. And then he spoke, and then he gave me a word from stage. He called me up, and he's like, David, I want to tell you what I hear God saying about you. And he just starts reading my mail. Like, you heard that terminology, reading your mail? Like
your
somebody's reading your mailbox to know what's
like
going on in your life.
Mailbox?
Life mailbox.
Oh,
Life.
I mean, I've used the expression before, like, are you reading my mail? Like, are you reading what's going on?
Yeah. So similar, I think, in its context, but just very detailed. Like, there was something that my family had gone through with one of our daughters that we were still going through, actually. That was something. It was very, very hard. It was a very, very difficult season, and we didn't talk. I hadn't talked to anybody about it. And he calls me out. He starts telling me some things, and then he pinpoints specifically what's going on, not in detail, but just that something's going on with my daughter, and that God's going to come in and he's going to intervene. And the power of God just floored me. Like, I was on the floor weeping, just bawling. Just God's presence was so powerful. So that's how I met Rex Crane. So Rex and I had become very, very close friends. And the word that Rex gave me came true. Like 6 months later, like the stuff that he said was going to happen, it happened. So I'm like, yeah, okay. He hears from God. And he's done a lot of that since too. God just, he loves speaking to his kids. But so I called Rex and I talked to him. And I'd actually talked to Rex because I was at Bedminster with President Trump and Barron. I got to have dinner with Cameron Moore, Bo Loudon, and then Barron and a couple of his and another one of his friends, and then a couple other gentlemen, Cliff Connectley and his son. And I got to pray at the end with Barron and with everybody, but lead him through a prayer. And Rex had actually sent me a word to give to Barron. And I'll paraphrase, but he said, God is going to keep your family. Like, God's going to keep your family. Things are going to be exposed. Something's going to try to, he wasn't specifically say assassination, but something was going to come against your dad, Barron, and God's going to stop it. It's going to make sure that it stopped. So I called him, and he's like, yeah, that's basically the word I gave. He was like, and that was like 3 weeks prior.
You told Barron that? And you told Barron this?
Oh, yeah. I gave Barron that word 3 weeks earlier. Yeah, in a voice memo. Rex sent me the voice memo when I sent it to Barron. So I messaged Barron afterwards, and I was like, this is pretty much what Rex just said. I was like, God is watching your family, and he's keeping your dad safe. And then I went live on Instagram, and I just poured my heart out. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that it was the divine hand of God that kept President Trump alive, because all the shooter had to do when Trump turned his head was refocus. He pulled the trigger
a few more times. I mean, he shot a few more times too.
He shot a few more times. Right. That part of it as well. But the first shot, was dead on the center of the side of Trump's head. And if Trump would have tilted right before he pulled the trigger, he just would have realigned and then shot. It was just that very same split second that he pulled the trigger and Trump turned his head. So I just believe it was an angel on Trump's hand that said, made him look or whatever it is.
Yep.
and that none of the other shots, as you pointed out, hit the target either.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Corey, they sent him to heaven. But I think that was a wake up call to a lot of people. And to me, it just said God's hand is on President Trump. And if he's keeping him alive, he's not keeping him alive so he can lose the election.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there were so many things that happened when you look at the 30,000-foot level of everything that went on, from indictments to house raids to assassination attempts,
Yep.
everything that went along the way. And of course, every wild thing that he says, just, keeps us all entertained, as I'm sure you've seen it many times, but sitting at those rallies and watching the whole thing, it's entertaining to watch him just go from like prompter to like, kind of like, okay, I'm losing the room or I'm bored. And then he'll make a joke and he'll say something. You're like, oh, yeah, there you are.
Right.
And then he kind of goes back into prompter and then back again. And no matter what, all it did was keep making him more popular.
Yes.
Which is just really powerful and interesting. And it really shows that, I've been thinking for a long time that since we don't know what's true anymore based on fake news being exposed and variety, I mean, there's so many levels of it that spread out to more than just what comes on your television at 5 o'clock at night or 6 a.m, but that we're being conditioned as human beings to elevate our consciousness and expand the way that we see things, to not necessarily go so far out as much as go in, and to be able to become lie detectors, or tap back into the ability to be the lie detector, where you can feel your body to know what's right and wrong. Like I don't know what happens to you, but when things are not right, you get kind of knots in your stomach and upset, and it's just there's discomfort. And then when things are right, and I call them yes bumps. Like when someone says something true, which it's happened a couple times in this conversation with you, my body will just produce little goosebumps,
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can start to get more tapped into what our body's telling us for the information, because of the fact that we're energy exchanging, I think that's the time we're in, is that we're being sort of brought back to our original sort of programming that exists, to be able to remember it, to take the veil off, to be able to sense that truth for ourselves. And I think that this election and everything that's happened and the outcome, I think, proves that this really has been a spiritual battle, and that this has been a battle against, as I said a few times, this didn't feel like Democrat versus Republican, because look at the Republican Party right now. Look how many Democrats are in the Republican Party. Even Trump was a Democrat, right?
Exactly.
So, it was more of a good versus evil and right versus wrong. And I think the people spoke, and the people said, we believe this is right.
And I think I love your description of us getting back to kind of original design. I'll take a little deeper on my own perspective.
I'd love that.
When God created us, right? God, in the beginning, God created Adam and Eve. When he created us 3 in 1. So we have a body, right? It's made up of flesh and blood and bones and everything else. And then we have a soul, which comprises our mind, our will, and our emotions. Because if you cut our body open, you're like, where are the emotions? Yeah. Where's love? Where does that rest? What's in our soul? God created a soul. But then God also created us to have a spirit being that just doesn't ever die. And I actually believe when God originally created Adam and Eve, he created Adam and Eve, and they were spirit beings, and they didn't actually have their fleshly body wasn't even covered yet. It wasn't until they sinned, and sin entered the body, and it's like, well, sin is death, which is then why God said, okay, you need to get out of the Garden of Eden, because you can't eat of the tree of life, because then you'll forever be filled with sin and death and have that in your body. So he cut them off. He said, you got to get out of the garden, and they were clothed then. But the original design, I believe, is to have more of that awakening and awareness of what our spirit that is connected to God is telling us, and that our soul picks up. And so where you call the little furry bumps, I call those
goosebumps, yes bumps.
Yeah, God bumps. Yeah, it's like Holy Spirit. It's like that's God's presence confirming what is true and what's not. And especially for ladies, my wife has an incredible gift of discernment, where she just has a knower inside of her spirit that just knows No, that person, no. That person, okay, yeah, I feel peace there, right? I'm always praying and saying, Holy Spirit, give me peace, give me joy. I try to follow peace and joy, and just it's a simple habit that I have of if I'm making a decision, what do I feel? Do I feel peace on it and joy on it? If not, if I don't feel peace or I feel any kind of anxiety, then it's like, okay, well that's not where I'm supposed to go. And that's a spirit kind of a being compared to a fleshly, right? Physical touch or hearing and everything else. But I love that. I think that we do need to get back and be aware that we have that ability to walk with our spirit being kind of directing our body more so.
Right. Right.
If we just do what our body wants, well, it wants to eat all the cake, all the ice cream,
That's right.
not do anything, be lazy, be a glutton, and everything else. It's like, no, we gotta keep our body in check, which you understand, being the incredible athlete, that you are and have had to be. I can't wait till I could drive a NASCAR in one at some point. I'd love to. Are you kidding me? I want to go fast. Come on.
You can. There are plenty of places you can jump in one.
I know. I need to.
I'd come cheer you on. Most people can't go much over like 130 even. Like, so,
I've already done that in my own car.
Okay. It's different. You got those walls around you.
I'm sure it is
130. I would love to see it though.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know well, it's been a while ago, but I had a C series Mercedes a while back, and I was on a straightaway. There was nobody around, so I was like, I'm gonna see how fast this sucker can go. So I did break 130. I think it was 142, but
that is about all the faster I've ever gone on the regular road, pretty much.
On the regular road.
Yeah. Because I'd probably get it out on the racetrack, and I was able to
you do
200 every single weekend or 240, so.
Man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
The crazy
I gotta try. Are there any NASCARs near where you live in Arizona?
I mean, there's tracks here. Vegas isn't far. They do track days in Vegas. What do you think the Democrats are going to do in these next few years? I mean, they are locked out. I mean, everything from, as you said, the popular vote and electoral votes, and that's great wins. That's great landslide wins. But, the House, the Senate, the president, from a justice standpoint, the Supreme Court. So what are they going to do?
I don't really know, and I think they're going to have
go to therapy, as was already said.
Yeah, I think Van Jones nailed it. That's really all they can do is go back to the drawing board. And here's where they're going to have a hard time. I believe what Donald Trump says is accurate. I believe that we're about to experience 4 golden age years of America.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that he is going to win with the House and the Senate, which is what he needed to truly enforce his MAGA Agenda 47 agenda. He
which wouldn't have happened last cycle. So this is the wait for the good stuff.
Exactly. It would not have happened in 2020. So there's so much momentum, and he has the House, the Senate, and now he knows, another part of the silver lining is now he knows who he can trust, because there's a whole lot of Republicans that turned on him over these last 4 years.
Sure.
He called out Mike Pompeo and Nikki Haley because they both turned on him.
I mean, Mike Pompeo, he mentioned him at the rally in Pennsylvania that I was at a couple days before. He's like, oh, we got Mike Pompeo here. And I was like, oh, I'm a little new to politics. So I'm like, is he a good guy? I can't remember. And sure enough, not so much.
He was, but he turned on Trump. Like, he was a part of his administration. He was a pivotal part. He was great. And all intents and purposes, I believed that what he was doing was right with what he did. But again, it's like, I thought Pence was a good guy too.
Him too. Exactly.
And when it came out, especially if have you seen General Flynn's movie?
Mm-mm.
You should watch the General Flynn movie. I think if you can just Google generalflynnmovie.com.
Okay.
And he was a Democrat that was appointed to general by Barack Obama. And then they wanted him to basically lie and cover up for what the Obama administration was doing. And General Flynn's brother was also in the military, high ranking, and he was in an area that had direct intel on what was happening in that region. And they were telling, I think it was Brennan was telling Flynn to write the report this way. He had to go to Congress and testify. And they said, this is what you're going to testify. And Flynn's like, I'm not going to do that. So you should really watch it, because again, Democrat, lifelong Democrat, general appointed by Obama, and then got held out to dry and then persecuted and then gone after. They tried to throw him in jail. And it was because President Trump was looking to tap him for the head of the NSA in 2020, in 2016. that whole thing went sideways really, really fast, and General Flynn went through hell. But he's a huge supporter for President Trump. But it's very, very eye opening as to what they are willing to do to one of their own that just gets out of line. So when it comes back to what are the Democrats going to do, I don't know, but I think they're going to have a very hard time with Trump winning. You know, he knows who he can trust. He knows who he can't trust. Anybody in the last 4 years, like a Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo, anybody that shared the talking line of the Democrat Party, the mainstream media, Trump took classified documents and he should be held accountable. Any of the stuff, anytime that somebody that was on Trump's side agreed with the Democrat mainstream media narrative against Trump in any of those lawfare cases, can't be trusted. Period. Can't be trusted.
Yeah.
There's too many, and there are a lot of loyal people to President Trump that stayed loyal the entire last 4 years through all the mud that they drug him through.
Well, I mean, that's probably why Kristi Noem was put in the position that she has been,
nominated for DHS. For the DHS, yep.
I mean, the good news is on your behalf is that with the way that it's gone and your belief system is that abortion clinics are threatening to go out of business because all the Democrats are shaving their head and swearing off sex for the time being. Yes. And there's an article that came out that said these abortion clinics are in danger of having to shut down because of not having enough not having enough visitors.
Yeah, because liberal women are going to stop having sex in protest of President Trump winning.
I think my favorite one was when a woman said that she was voting for Kamala because of having abortion rights and female rights and that she was a lesbian. I'm pretty sure. I think she said, and she wanted to have birth control. And like you're just watching these things and you're like, make it make sense.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
How can you make it make sense? It just doesn't make sense.
The make it make sense expression era is coming to a screeching halt. And, he's done more in 4 or 5 days or whatever it's been than I could have ever expected. And that got done in the last 4 years, of course, which was obviously a drastic regression into, cost of living, border control, safety, everything. We're buying a home, just everything getting so out of control. Wars, the astronomical prices, the lack of FEMA support when natural disasters happen. I mean, you name it, it's just an absolute disaster. So I'm very excited about all those things changing. And I think that, hopefully we don't get a lot of rhino dino deals happening where things get messy, which always leads me to a very curious place, because if people are changing parties and when you get more into politics, as I have a little bit, now you're like, whoa, there's a lot going on here.
Yes.
There is a lot of wheeling and dealing and positioning. Yes. And the words are always like, keep your circle really small. And I always get very curious. I go back to actually one of my first curiosities with politics when I got engaged into it. And that's what is the point of the parties? They don't even stand for the same things anymore. So what are the point of the parties? And I'm still curious. I don't think that there's quite an answer, because it doesn't seem like it's a cut and dry, right? I mean, would you say the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's been this way for so long that it's not going to change overnight.
Right.
I believe that for far too long, both parties have been two different sides of the same coin. And when Democrats are in office, then it's pedal to the metal. And when Republicans are in office, we'll be a little bit lighter. But behind the scenes, as you say, there's all this wheeling and dealing, and the people get sold out and get screwed. And it's, we're all burdened by taxes and slave to the tremendous national deficit, which Joe Biden, again, and the Democrats just continue to just try to drive harder, and faster.
Cost of campaigning and how much money they take from, individuals and companies to make their whole campaign happen. I mean, this makes things very messy.
It does. Yeah. And I think that President Trump is the wrecking ball to that. I don't know if that means it's going to change the two-party system, right? Yeah. I think that because he only has 4 years, right? He's already served 4. So at the end of these 4, hopefully the end of those 4 golden age years, Vance will have, picked up even more steam and more momentum.
Give me your pick who you're excited about, because I think there's a real opportunity for this to be 12 years. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too.
I
I do
really do.
too.
I think it's very likely. I think it could be very possible if we can keep egos out of the way and just, get the work done and have these 4 years be as magical as we believe they could be.
Yeah.
Who are you most impressed with?
It's so early on right now that there's several very impressive individuals, I believe, but it's so early on right now that I don't know that it's going to matter me saying. I think that ultimately it's going to depend on who President Trump taps, right? Whoever he endorses as he leaves, is who's going to probably win, just period. And he'll endorse who he believes will have the best opportunity to continue his MAGA agenda, and make it a reality. And so again, it's 4 years is a long time. I love JD Vance. His story. Have you seen
Yeah,
Hillbilly
hillbilly
Elegy?
elegy. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
incredible.
I mean, I did a town hall for him in North Carolina. I realized I was supposed to speak at the very last rally in Grand Rapids, and he was just the nicest guy. And Usha was there. He didn't even want to know the questions I had. Didn't even cross his mind. I thought he would want to sit down for 2 seconds and say hello and be like, "Okay, what are you thinking?" And because I'm moderating, and not at all. Just we're backstage hanging out with the two of them, chatting about life and racing and kids and baking and all the funny things that came up. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you're up, you're on stage. And I literally was in the middle of a conversation and they handed me the microphone. So, but he's just such a chill guy. He creates such a vibe of such a comfortable environment around him. I really was impressed. Really nice guy. And so was his wife. And when you can tell people are in love, like it was so cute to see them. And you could really just tell like they were in love. And that was
Mm.
beautiful to see too.
I love what I've seen. I haven't had the opportunity to meet him in person yet, but I believe President Trump absolutely picked the right running mate, and I think he also probably picked JD Vance with the next 8 years after Trump's four in mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be tough to beat Vance, coming out of 4 years of prosperity, safety, security, and growth, and with JD being his VP, I think it'll be hard to beat him. But you never know what's going to happen the next 4 years. If Trump gives JD his endorsement, I don't think that he'll get beat.
What's the historical on a VP going for the presidency after being, after the
It's
terms
a
are
great
up? How many
question.
times does that happen,
I'd
actually?
have to look that one up. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a great
I'd be
question.
curious too.
Mhm.
Well,
Kamala just tried it.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
over one right there.
Exactly. If you were to name sort of your top three things that you hope this administration in this next 4 years is able to really, really get their arms around and solve, what would the other two be?
I think the pro-life issue is definitely the number one. It's
Yeah.
and I don't think it's something that President Trump is going to change.
Right.
He's already sent it back to the states.
Yep.
I would love to see it even go even further, but I don't think that's a battle that he's trying to wage right now. Right
Well, I
now,
mean,
it's
he said that he wants to have insurance cover IVF treatments. He's
Mhm.
like, because we want more babies.
Right.
While
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
trying to while the deep state, big, one world government is trying to depopulate this planet down to, I feel like I've heard a bunch of times, like 550 million, which is basically everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was wild to
I've
think
heard
there's
it.
over
Yep.
8 billion people. 550 is insane, and so very, very sad and tragic. And there's no words for it, to be honest. That it's actually, we're not overpopulated. We are on a different track, and all you have to do is use the observations around you to see that people are having kids less later in life and less of them, and
Yeah.
there's less fertility based
Yeah.
on a million things.
Well, and especially as of late, the last 3 years, fertility has really gone south for, men and women, the
Yep.
fertility factor. But so, yeah, I'd say the pro-life issue is definitely, I think, it's always number one. But when it comes to our economy, I think the mass deportation effort, I think him tapping Tom Homan as the new ICE director.
He seems like a
Uh,
badass.
Oh, Tom is a bad. Yeah, I actually texted him earlier today. I'm going to have him on
Oh,
my show
really?
next week. Yeah, Tom is a badass.
Amazing.
I've talked to him on a few occasions, and then seen his clips, obviously, that have gone viral, and have posted about him as well. He's a real deal. He understands the law. He's been on the border, trying to protect the border for 34 years. I think he's the right guy for the job to carry out the mass deportation, get them out of our country. They're causing so much. And again, it's not that we don't want immigration; just come legally.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
for all these people that have just skirted the legal immigration process and are now in our country and getting all these freebies and handouts, free food, EBT cars, apartments, The cars, you don't even have to have licenses, but you can drive a car. It's like the stories are just crazy, and it's all sinking Americans' economy and our opportunities. It's taken away from Americans and causing other catastrophes,
Well, of
along with
course,
the
when
rapes and
you
murders.
lay that over no voter ID states going blue, it does make some sense.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I would say, take care of the illegal alien invasion that is a problem. Close the border, and then he's just gonna he's gonna use tariffs, I think, as an art form that's going to bring so much money into this country, and putting the focus on American made and American manufacturing to get companies to stop manufacturing overseas
Mhm.
and manufacture and build here. I think we're gonna see such a huge economic boom in this country over the next 4 years, and it'll start to happen fast. But I think our economy will start to turn around. It may take a year before a lot of people start to see it, maybe even 2 years before people really see the growth. Because we got to get back to even. Like we're at a deficit, right? Americans are at a deficit and have been operating on a deficit for a couple of years now. A lot of people. So it's going to take a lot just to get people back to even before then we even start to see the bounty, the abundance that is, I believe, coming. But I do believe it's coming. So I think when the economy gets roaring again, companies will be able to do what they were doing back when he gave the biggest tax cuts he ever gave to corporations, and they were giving out all these bonuses. And it's like, hey, we got all this extra money, let's bonus you out. And and they're putting more investment into their workers, employees. We're going to see that again. It's going to take a minute to get back there, but I believe we're going to see that. And then he can get back to what he's doing for the black community. Opportunity zones. He had a platinum plan in place going into 2020 that got put on hold, of course. But he understands how to get money to pour into low income urban areas for investment to revitalize an area, and then put money into the pockets of people that are going to build in that area, and then give the tax benefits behind it to the people building and to the people investing to revitalize an area. And it's like there's no reason why so many of our streets and roads and highways around the country and so many of our urban areas should look like Venezuelan ghettos. There's just no reason, except nobody that's had the ability and the know-how has been in office to get the job done, and Trump knows how to do it.
Yeah,
So I think we're going to see a pretty glorious next 4 years. I really, really do.
I like
And
that.
and no more wars, right? It's nice to not feel like at any minute, China or North Korea or Russia could be sending a yeah, exactly. It's time.
The red easy button. We don't want that.
Exactly.
Well, on top of that, I mean, I've always been most passionate about the Maha movement and making America healthy again. I mean, that's where my health lies. I see your green drink. Yes, I
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Exactly. This is filled with electrolytes, which is why it looks cloudy. So I'm
Nice.
happy to see that. But what Bobby can do, and just the cleaning up the food systems, the agriculture, and the medical system, and drugs, and it just that the big pharma. I think we're on the precipice of a really, really beautiful, amazing golden 4 years. So
We are.
thank you for
Absolutely.
all of your help. Thank you for doing your part and speaking your
I'll
truth.
I'll send you some of these. So these are my
Oh,
wife and I's greens. These are the best
cool.
greens on the planet.
Okay. Thank you
And
very
it's
much.
all the greens are organic. It's a blend of organic greens. Plus, we've added probiotics. We've actually been in the health and wellness nutritional space for like 14 years. Yeah, and it's
Congratulations.
clean. So I'll send you some. Send me your contact info, and I'll send you our little package. And for anybody watching, you can actually go to thebestgreens.us and get them.
Amazing. Thanks, David. You're a superstar. Thanks for all you
Thank you,
do. See you
Danica.
soon.
Absolutely. God bless you, sis.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.